The narrator bought an old roll-top desk from a junk shop in Bradport. The table was cheap since it was in a very bad condition. It had a poorly mended leg and scorch marks, that is, burnt marks, completely on one side. The narrator decided to buy it and restore it to good condition. He started restoring the desk on a Christmas Eve. He realized that it had lots of fire and water damage. While fixing, he tried to open the last drawer in the desk, but couldn't. He tried to open it gently so that it wouldn't break, but he couldn't. So he used his full strength and the drawer flew open. Underneath the drawer, there was a secret drawer where he found a small black tin box with a lined notepaper sellotaped to the top. On the paper, it was written, Jim's last letter, received on January 25, 1915. The narrator did not want to open the letter because it is someone else's, but his curiosity made him open the letter and read. The letter was written in pencil. It was written on December 26, 1914. The letter was written by Captain Jim Macpherson, an English soldier fighting against the Germans in World War I. In the letter, Jim Macpherson had written about a wonderful event that had happened between the soldiers of the two enemy countries to his wife, Connie Macpherson. And this is what had been written in the letter. On Christmas morning, the Fritz, which is a common name for Germans, from their trenches called the English soldiers from across the no man's land. What is a no man's land? No man's land is the land that is unoccupied during war between the enemy camps. So from across there, they wished the English soldiers Happy Christmas. The English soldiers wished them the same. After a while, one German soldier came out of his trench and waved a white flag asking the English soldiers to not shoot. And then another one came. At first, Jim Macpherson thought it was a trick by the German soldiers to attack them suddenly. But soon he and everyone realized that they mean no harm. A dozen German soldiers came with bottles, schnapps, and sausages and asked the English soldiers whether they could join them and celebrate Christmas. A soldier named Little Private Morris got up and called all the other soldiers to join the German soldiers. Soon the German soldiers in grey coats and the English soldiers in khaki coats met in the middle. Jim Macpherson, who is the captain of the English soldiers, also joined them. With great joy, he tells his wife, Connie, in the letter that the German officer, Hans Wolf, came with his hands outstretched to greet him. He told him that he was from Dusseldorf and he plays cello. He also told him that he has a son who is 6 months old. Jim Macpherson told him that he was a teacher and he was from Dorset, west of England. Hans Wolf told him that he knows the place and shared his rum and sausage. Jim was surprised by Hans Wolf's almost perfect English. Hans also told him that his favorite author is Thomas Hardy and his favorite book is Far from the Madding Crowd. Out there in no man's land, the soldiers who were enemies to each other were having a good time together. Jim shared a marzipan with Hans, and Hans told him that was the best marzipan that he had ever tasted. Soon they decided to play football. They made goal posts with their coats and played together. The breath of Jim and Hans mixing in the air was visible because of winter, and it made them both smile, showing how good it would be if there were no wars between them. Hans told Jim that wars should be settled by football where there will be no loss of people. Jim agreed, but he suggested that if English people had to win, he would prefer cricket. They laughed and watched the game together. The Fritz scored 2 and the Tommies, that is the English soldiers, scored 1. Fritz told that Tommy's goalpost was wider, that's why it was easy for them to score goals. Jim expressed his desire that as soon as the war ends, everyone will return home and spend time with their family. Hans expressed the same. He told Jim MacPherson that he would never forget this moment and that he would never forget him, and went back to their trenches. At night, Fritz sang the carol Silent Night.
Stille Nacht, heilige Nacht, alles schlaft, einsam weit, nur das traut hoch heiligen Palt,
and the Tommies followed it by singing While Shepherds Watch. They both had the wonderful time in the middle of the war. And Jim told Connie in the letter that he would cherish it till the end of his life. He ends the letter with a promise to his wife that before next Christmas, the war will end and he will see her soon. The narrator decided to give the letter to Mrs. Connie MacPherson. She lived in 12 Copper Beeches, Bridport. He finds the address, but the house looked like a burned out shell with big holes on the roof and windows boarded up. He asked the neighbor the whereabouts of Mrs. Connie MacPherson. They told, after the house caught on fire, she was taken to the nursing home Burlington House on the Dorchester Road. The narrator visited the place and found Connie MacPherson. She was in a wheelchair. The narrator wished her Happy Christmas, Connie, and gave the letter telling, I found this. This is yours. Connie was looking with her eyes fixed on the narrator's face. He opened the tin box and gave the letter to her, and her face was lit with happiness. The narrator explained her how he got the letter, but she was fixed on the narrator's face. Suddenly, she took the narrator's hand, mistaking him for her husband, Jim MacPherson. She told him that finally he has come for Christmas, and that was the best Christmas present for her in the world. She told the narrator, mistaking him for her husband, that she would read his letter so often to hear his voice inside her head, so that she would feel that he was with her. And she asked him to read the letter for her to hear his voice once again. She told him that they would have tea and a nice Christmas cake and marzipan, reminding him how much he loves marzipan. Thank you.